Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our full stack mobile development series. In today's episode, we are going to focus on our setup pin, which is the last step in the onboarding process when it comes to your authentication flow. We are going to build these two screens as well as work on the setup account screen. But today we are just going to focus on just these two screens. Okay. Now, before we proceed, we would like to make some few adjustments to our code from the previous episode. So if we head over to our Android Studio, I have the application already running here. If I head over to the login screen, right? So when the user logs in, we do this check here and then we route the user to the appropriate screen. However, if you remember from our previous episode in the helper here, once we have the user state, whether the user is logged in or not, we can determine what the screen is and then route the user to the appropriate screen. So what we want to do is that instead of doing this here repeatedly, what we want to do is just get the final route, helper.initial route. Now, this depending on what the user is. If the user has not logged in, go to walk through. If the user is logged in but the email is not verified, go to the verification screen. If not, head over to the home screen. At this point, if the user logs in and the account is verified, they will be sent to the home screen. That's what we are going to get here. So we move this up here. Sorry. And then this becomes our route. Now I realize this is future, so we have to await it here. Okay. And then we don't need to do this. Right. So that is one. Another thing is we can also look at the other screens. For example, on sign up, we take the user to the verification here, which is clear enough, right? But what if we do not want the users to verify the account after sign up again? That means we have to come here and change this. So what we can do is we can also, instead of doing this, do the same thing as we did here. So find out this and then pass that route. Because at that point, the user would have been created, so we would have it here, and then we'll be able to know where to route the user to. So that is one. And another thing is after the verification screen, we route the user. So after the verification, we route the user to the home screen. We want to also make the same check here. So instead of routing the user there, we would want to do this and then pass this route. So if the logic around what the state of the user should be, depending on whether they've logged in, logged out, have a verified email or not, would be stored here. And then it makes it easier for us to make adjustments to that decision. Okay, so when we make anything, when we want to route the user to another screen instead of the home after completing all the process, we change it here and it affects both the login, the verification, and the sign up screen. All right, so that's it. We can go ahead and test it here. Okay, so I have my user, which is devsafo@gmail.com. And then my password is 1234567 8. When I log in, it takes me straight to the home screen. Okay. And we can test it again with the user that has not verified the account. So test user devsafo@2003@gmail.com. Sorry, I'll change this to plus. Okay. 1234567 8. And then I sign up. I'm taken to the verification screen. I log out. I log in again. devsafo plus 2003@gmail.com here. 1234567 8. And then I log in and realize I come back to the verification screen. If I restart the application, I should be taken back to the verification screen because that's the state of my account, right? Good. So that's it. Now let's proceed to our setup screen, our setup pin screen. Okay. So here we have this test. We have these three circles here indicating the number of the numbers you've inputted here, and then we have the dial pad here. For this screen, there are several packages out there. There are several Flutter packages out there that would do this whole logic for you. But because we really want to understand what we are doing in this series, we are going to go ahead and build this ourselves. We are not going to rely on any third-party package. So we'll head over to our Android Studio. In our views here, and then we create that file. We call it setup pin. Okay, so this is going to be a stateful widget, and it's going to be the setup pin screen. And then we So we import material, and this is our setup screen, setup pin screen. And then we have to add a route to our main.dat file. So setup okay, so we have our setup pin, and then in our main we duplicate this setup pin, should take you to the setup pin screen. Okay, so that is that. Then the final thing that we need to do is in our helper here. So now we have a new condition. If the user has not logged in, you take them to the walkthrough. If the user has logged in but not verified the email, we take them to the verification. Now, if the user has not set up a pin, we take them to the pin screen. Okay. And to do this, we have to first head over to our user model here and then add a new field that will store whether or not the user has a pin. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this, duplicate it here. It's not going to be a late, it's going to be a nullable, and it's going to be a pin. I changed the index of this to 7. Now, once this is done, we've made these changes, but we need to make sure that it affects the user.g file here, which is generated. And to do that, we head over to our terminal. We say that run build runner build, and that would use the Hive generator to generate the new user.g.dat file for us with the new field. So you can observe this line. So once it's done, you have this new pin field. Okay, now in our helper, we then add our new condition. Else if the user.pin is null, that means the user has no pin, then we take the user to the app routes.setup pin screen. So we then take the user to the screen for them to set up their pin. Okay, so let's go ahead and then test our, so I'm going to log out from this user, log in with one of my accounts that has verified, and then I'm taking to the setup screen. So the setup pin screen here, that is what I have. Okay, now let's just let it let's work on the scaffold. So here we are going to have our scaffold, which has a background, which is our app colors.bg color, and it has an app bar, which is our build app bar. From the UI here, you realize it does not have an app bar, so we are not going to add an app bar. Okay, and then it has this body, which is this whole body, and the screen, the background is not the bg color, the background is our primary color. Okay, and then we have this, so we are going to have our column with the children. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at it. So now that's our screen. We just need to add the test and everything. So the first test is let's set up your pin. Okay, so I'm going to have a test, and then this is let's set up your pin. So the style, let's look at our test style. It has the base light color, and then here it's a semi-bold 18. So semi-bold 18. So app styles dot semi-bold. So let's look at our semi-bold 18. So our semi-bold is this. Yeah, we don't have a semi-bold, but we can go ahead. The semi-bold is just like the app title. So I'm just going to have this. And to be sure that we have the right one, you realize this is 600. If you look at our pubspec.yaml file here, that's where we defined our font. The semi-bold has a weight of 600. So anything with a weight of 600 is our semi-bold, which is this one. Okay, so semi-bold of 18 and has a weight of 600. So we have that already. Here, we say semi-bold, it's 18. But what we want to do is we want to pass our colors, and this is going to be colors.white because the test is white in color. And as you can see, the test is all the way up there. We are going to fix it, don't worry. And that's because we don't have an app bar. So for now, let me just put the app bar in there. We are going to fix that, and then here. So that's it. That's our setup pin, and that's our app bar. But if you don't want to have the app bar, then we take this, we wrap this in a pattern you say padding edge, you set all. For now, let's work with 24. I'm going to fix it later. And then that's our bar. So you realize you normally have to keep adding this every time. You have to keep adjusting to works, and that is not the best. So what you want to do is you have your column here, right? So you take everything in the body. This is your body. And what you want to do is you want to say that safe area, and the child is this column. Now this safe area will give you, would put a padding around the entire screen depending on the device. It's calculated depending on the device, and then make sure that your content stays in the visible part of the screen. So that's our safe area. We have our column here. So that's our column and that's our test. And as you can see, we have it there. Okay, now here I could just do up spacing and vertical. Our top spacing is always 48. So that's our test. But since we do not want to hard code any of this, we want to move this to our app strings. So we head over to our app strings here. And then we say, let's set up your pin. So I'm just going to convert this. So let's set up your pin. It's going to be that. Just need the single quote. Okay. And then I need this correct one. Okay, good. I need to escape the single quote there. So let's set up your pin. And that's going to be our new test here. Okay. And then we have the circles here, 4 of them. So I'm going to work on the first one. And for this, I'm going to need a row. Let me put some spacing in between. Okay, so that's our test. And then we have our row. So without the row and the we realize that it goes here. That's how the column works. So once there's something, then it starts centering everything. Okay, so we have this, and then we want to build our first circle input. You realize from when we're building our pin screen here, we made some smart decisions by building just one and duplicating it, right? So we are going to do the same thing for this one. Okay, so in our code here, I'm going to have a widget. Okay, input fields, and then this is going to return my row. Again, let's go so that is private. Okay, all right. Okay, so for our row, what we are going to say is that main axis, we want to center everything. Okay, and then the first thing is we need a container. Okay, so we are going to first work with a container, and for the decoration, we are going to have box decoration. Okay, and inside our box decoration, you are going to have our color, which is going to be colors.white. And then for our shape, we are going to have a circle. Okay, so that's our shape. Okay, and then we have to then specify the height, which is going to be the height of the circle. We can confirm that from here. Our is 32. So height is 32, width is 32. Okay, so that's our first cycle, and we have to repeat this 3 times. So realize we don't want to be doing this, having 3 different like this. No. So what we want to do is we want to loop through using a list or generate to create this. Okay, so the length is 4, and then we have our generator. Okay, so this is going to be our index, and then in here we are going to return the container. Okay, and we are going to move this list generate as the children directly. All right. So now we have it. We have our three lists here, as you can see. Now for each of them, we want to put spacing at the end. Okay. We take our container and then we can wrap it in a padding. Okay. Here. And the child is going to be this container. So for our padding, we are going to say edge insert dot symmetric, and then it's going to be horizontal. Let's start with 8. Okay, so we have the spacing. I think that's a bit too much. Go to 4, 2. Let's look at our UI here. I think this is, yeah, good enough. Okay, so we have our input. We can go ahead and add const everywhere just to be correct on this. Okay, and then we need some good spacing between the test and this. I think compared to what we have in the UI, it's a bit further down. Okay, so you realize that if the test is provided, if the pin is provided, it's this, but if it's not, then it's like this, which is just the container with this border, which is our primary color light. Okay, so we can go ahead and also do that. Here, border dot all, and we want to specify the color, which is our, if you can look here, it's our primary light color. So app colors, now we can do this because of the const here. So app colors dot primary color light, and that should add the border, but at this moment you can't see it. So we first remove this color and set it as transparent, because when it's not set, it's transparent. Okay, we save this. Just go ahead and save this here, and then as you can see, we have it, but it's 2D. So what we then need to do is, with opacity, we say 0.5, which is half, and as you can see, it's very opaque. And then we can also increase the size, which is the width, to at least 2. Let's start with 2, and then that's it there. Okay, compared to this here, that's our input. Maybe we can, let's try 4. Okay, yes, so I think that's it. And when the user types the pin, we change the color to white. Okay, and remove the border. All right, so assuming the user has provided the test, then it becomes white like this. Okay, so for now it is transparent, and we have this here. Now the next thing is we have to build this number input. So we are going to do that also in a very smart way. We are going to use a lot of list generate for this. Okay, so here we also need another widget. So widget number input. Okay, and this is going to also return, for now let's just return an empty column. Okay, all right, and then we are going to use that here. So we also need the spacing. Okay, and then that is it there. All right, so we have our number down here. Now let's build it. Now at first we need 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, just like that. We can build the first row and then duplicate it for the subsequent ones. So what then we are going to do is, here the same thing we did with the input fields using the list generate. We are going to have a row, so we can just go ahead and copy this whole thing. We have a row. Oh, we don't need a return. Let me copy it, right? So this is our whole row. So we put our row in here, and then we save. And as you can see, we have our row, and it's giving us 3. We want to have 3 instead of 4. So that's the 3. And then we have to work on this. So this, let's look at the test. Okay, so it's a medium 48. All right, so instead of showing this container, we are rather going to show a test. So test, and the test that we want to have is going to be the index plus 1. Okay, to string. For now, let's just use to string. We are going to improve it, and then style app styles dot medium 48. So medium size is 48. Okay, so now let's save, and then we have 1, 2, 3. All right, so that is coming up very nicely. Now we also want to set the color. So colors dot white, and that's our color. Okay, now one thing we want to do is on the row in the main axis alignment here, we are going to change this and say space evenly. Okay, so now this is going to space out everything evenly. All right, and then now let's look at our input here. So it's coming up nicely. It's going to be perfect. And we can also see that, so there are so many alignments. So space between is going to fill out the spaces and fill up the entire row. So as you can see, it fills up the entire row. Okay, so we keep that. And then the last one we want to have a look at, which is the space around, and that's what we are going to use. So with the space around, is going to divide the space evenly across the children, as you can see here. So that gives us the desired results on the screen. So for this one, we are going to use the space around, and we have the 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is our input versus. I think, yeah, that is 1. And then what we want to do is we want to increase this row. We have multiple rows, so like we can also do this. And then we have another set of row. Okay, then we continue 1, 2, 3, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and what we can do is we can use a simple loop inside the loop to do this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So here we have this. Okay, and then what we want to do is first save this. As you can see, it's 1, 2, 3 here. Now what we are going to do is we need to wrap this in another loop. Okay, so we're going to take this here, and then we're going to do dot list dot generate. So we're going to generate the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For the last row, we're going to use a different approach. So it's 3. And then here, so this is going to be our rows, and then in there, so row index, and then we have this here. So the row index is going to return our new rows here. Okay, so now let's save this, and we should get 3 of this. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's not what we want to do. We want to change this. So in here, let's say final number, and that should be this. So it's going to be our index plus 1. Sorry, in here it's going to be our index plus 1. So that's our final number, and that's what we are showing here. Okay, so that will still give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here what we are going to do is we have our row index, okay, times 3, because they are 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, plus whatever this is. Okay, so if we start on the first index, which is going to be 0, 0 times 3 will be 0, 0, and then we have 0 here plus 1, which is 1, and then we do the same thing. Now when we get to the second row, which is going to be the 4, 5, 6, at that point the row index is equal to 1, so 1 times 3 is 3. For the first index is going to be 0, so 0 plus 1 is 1, plus 3, then we'll give you 4 in the first index, and then you continue 5, 6. So we can just do this for clarity. Okay, now let's go ahead and save this and then have a look at it. So now, as you can see, we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I hope that makes sense. Let me go over this again. So in the first row here, okay, the row index is 0. So 0 times 3, everything on this left side will always be 0. So you start from 0 plus 1, which is 1, 1 plus 1, which is 2, 2 plus 1, which is 3. Now, on the second row here, which is the 4, 5, 6, at that point, the row index here is 1. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3, plus 0 plus 1, which will give you 4. And then for the second one, at that point, index is 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 3 will give you 5. And that's how we get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now let's look at our UI here, and then we can put some space also. So here I could just go ahead and go into my Android Studio here. Okay, we are just going to change this padding to edge insets from symmetric here to all, and then let's first start with 8. Okay, so that we have at least some good enough padding. All right, I think that's the 8 is good enough. Okay, and then we need our last row, which is going to be the one with the 0 and the backspace. So at this point, we can just go ahead and not use the list.generate because we already know what we want. Okay, so we just want this test with this padding. So I'll just go ahead and copy this test with this padding, and this is my row. Okay, so in the children, I'm just going to first use app spacing dot horizontal, and then size 16. This is going to be my 0 test. Okay, so I have my 0 test here, and then let me put the same thing on the end space here, and then I have my 0 right in the middle here, as you can see. But on the end, I need to put the arrow instead of the 0. But for now, I just want to show you how. So that is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's our input numbers here. We've written this in a very simple way using the list.generate, which is very, very good. One of the best things I enjoy using in Flutter. Okay, so let's go ahead and let the UI look exactly like how this one is. So you realize that the input is way to the bottom here, to the bottom of the screen, and then you have the rest at the top. So what we are going to do is we are going to head over to where the number input is. Okay, and then we are going to use another widget called the spacer, add the const, and that's going to fill up the entire space there and then push everything to the bottom and to the top of the screen. Okay, so if I to move the spacer up here, it's going to push everything all the way up and put the spacer at the bottom. So we put the spacer between this and that, and we don't even need this then at that point because we are going to fill up the entire thing. So yep, as you can see, our UI is coming up nicely. Okay, now let's add the button. You realize that for the UI there's no button for backspace, so what we are going to do is we're going to implement a backspace on the side. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our button. So here I'm going to have my icon button. For now we don't have the on press, so we're going to leave this, and then this is going to be my icon, and then inside my icon I have my icons dot arrow. So I have my arrow. Okay, so arrow forward. All right, and here we are just using the outline. Okay, so that's my arrow. As you can see, it's down here. Now let's work on the color and the size. Okay, so colors dot white, and the size is 16 for now. It's too small. Let's make it 48, just as our test is 48. Okay, so add const, and then I'm going to repeat the same thing up here because we want both sides of it to be the same so that the 0 fits in the middle. And then here my icon is no longer this, but it's the delete one, so we can use this or we can use the backspace. So arrow backspace, this one. Okay, okay, now we have our backspace here, our forward, and then our 0. Okay, now then what we want to do is we want to change this into the buttons. Okay, so we can have a test button as well, which has a child, which is going to be this test, and it needs an unpressed. Okay, so now we have the field of the press here, as you can see. I can see the effect when they tap on it. So now they can tap on it. All right, so that's it for the UI. As you can see, we have the actual UI, the actual UI, sorry. So that's it. We then have to go ahead and implement the on tap. Okay, so here we are going to have our void. So select number, which is going to take a number, and then we're going to have this here. Okay, so string number, and then it's going to append the number. So in our input fields here, so we have the select number. Just have to add this. Okay, so select number, and then here all we are passing. Oh, sorry, not that's not on the icon, but on the test button here. So this on press, select, and then we have the number. Okay, so because this is going to be an integer, we have to change this to an integer for now. Okay, sorry. So okay, and then that's it. So that for now we just print what the number is. Okay, now let's put that to test. Here if I tap 1 2 3 4 5 6, as you can see here. Good. All right, so what then we need is we need to store the inputs, the pin that the user has added. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this first here. Then we have our var pin. We can even say it's a late string pin. Okay, so that's our late string pin, and then we have it there. So when the user selects the number, we append the pin to the number. So here we say that this is equal to this plus what the number is to string. Okay, and then we can print what the pin is. For now, let's just do that. Okay, so 1, and we have pin is not initialized, sorry, because we are setting the pin to late. We can also set it to an empty pin. Okay, for now, let's just use an empty pin. So 1 2 3, as you can see, my pin is now 1 2 3 8. If I type 0, it does nothing because you've not done the on tap for 0. We did it for the ones in the loop. So 9, you have the 9 and all. So you have to do the same thing for the 1 in the 0. So this is our 0 test here. So the same thing that we did up here with this test button. I'm just going to copy this one, and then over here my number is 0, and then I pass my 0 here. Okay, so now I have 0 0, and you can see we keep having the longer pin. Okay, so what we then want to do is that we have to make sure that the length of the pin is not more than what we want, which is 4. So if the pin, dot length is greater than 4, return. So if you have more than 4, return. Don't do anything. If not, add it. So here, if I tap on this, nothing happens because we already have the 4. Okay, what we can also then do is we can also have up here, we can have our final pin length, sorry, which is equal to 4. And then we can use it down here so that we do not hard code the pin length. Okay, so I can just go ahead and change this, make it equal. So pin length, it's going to be our pin length, sorry. Okay, so pin length, pin. All right, so that's our pin length. And also depending on the pin length, we can generate this. So here we pass the pin length. Okay, so if the length of the pin in the next, let's say in the next version of the app increases to 6, then you should be able to generate the 6 instead of the 4 that we initially generated. Okay, so let me just go ahead and restart the entire application. And as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because we changed this to 6. But for now, we're just going to change it back to 4. And because we have it in the build here, we have to restart. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's it here. We have our pins. When I type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, realize that nothing happens, but I get the last one added. And that's because I'm doing this. So I have to do, if the pin is greater than or equal to the length, then you return. You do not want to append again. So let's restart everything. And then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 doesn't come, 5 doesn't come. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, we've hit the limit and we are done. Okay. And then now that we have it, we can also then work on this input here. So here in our input field here, let's also rename this. It's not necessarily input field, it's the input indicators. So we want to call it indicators. And then we want to have rename this from number input to input numbers. Okay, so I refactor that. Okay, so I have the input indicators. Now we want to change the color of this based on where the length of this. So we have the index, which is that. And so here, the color, depending on the length of the pin. So the length, so if the length is 1, and then we have if the pin length is greater than the current index plus 1. So if I'm on the first one, which is index 1, so if it's greater than or equal to the current index plus 1 here, then the color is white. If not, the color is transparent. So what we are saying is that, let's say if the pin is greater than or equal to the index plus 1, so for the first input is going to be 0 plus 1, which is 1. When the pin is empty, the length is empty, this will be false, so it will be this. So we can go ahead and test it. As you can see, we have it here. So let's go ahead and set this. And when I type 1, nothing happens, and that's because I'm not setting the state. So what I need to do is, when I do this, I have to set state, okay, so that it will update the state of the pin. So I can just go ahead and do this. Just do it in a one-liner like that. Okay, so 2, 1, 2. Realize it keeps coloring. Okay, good. Now let's work on the backspace also. So on backspace here, which is this one, what we can also then do is we can handle it in here, or we can just say that handle backspace, and then create it down here. So copy this, void handle backspace. And what we are going to also say is that also with this one, if the length of the pin is equal to 0, that means if there's nothing in there to remove, we want to return, right? So sorry, we can replace with this empty. And what we want to do is we want to set state this. We want to remove the last one from the pin. So we are going to say that pin, the substring, and we want to remove from the start to the length of the pin. So we have pin dot pin dot length -2. Okay, just want to show you this. So it removes 2. Okay, now we want to just remove it 1. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. When it's done, you cannot go again because it will then return. So that's it. So we are saying that the pin is equal to the pin, take the substring of it starting from the first to the length of it -1. So we are going down the pin. Okay. Okay. So that's it for the pin screen. If implemented the press for each of them and the backspace as well. And then I think, yeah. All right, so the next thing is when the user taps on this, it comes back to this screen and we want them to retype their pin just to confirm, and then they tap on it and then they confirm. What we can do is we can either create another screen of the same thing and then do it, or we can just use the same screen to confirm. Okay, so the pin and the pin confirmation. Okay, that's the screen. So we can create two separate screens to handle this, or we can just use one screen and just switch the case. So we have pin confirmation, and then we want to know the step the person is on. So int step, which by default is equal to 0. Okay, so when the person is on step 0, it means that they are entering the pin. When they're on step 1, it means that they are confirming the pin. Okay, so here when the person untabs this, so void handle submit. Okay, and that's going to be when the user taps on this. Okay, so if the step is equal to 0, that means you're on the first step. Sorry, the step is equal to 0, we're on the first step. Now in the first step, if the pin, okay, if the pin dot length is less than the pin length, then we return because the person has not entered the full length. Okay, if not, if it's valid, then we set state, and then we say that step is equal to, so here is equal to 1. Okay, so we increase the step to 1. Okay, and then else if the step is also then equal to 1, then we say that the pin confirmation length is less than this. If it happens at this point, we submit the pin. Okay, we create the pin, we submit it sort of here. So that's going to be a handle submit. So here, let's look at our app again. If I type this and I type nothing happens, okay, nothing happens. 1 2 3 4. Now when I type this, then we are on the second screen. Okay, so now let's handle the UI for the second screen. Okay, so in our in our input, these are input numbers. In our input indicators here, you realize we are checking this against the length. So depending on the step you are, you should check either the pin confirmation or the pin length. Okay, so let's do the brute force way, and then we are going to do the proper way. Okay, so if step is equal to 0, then it's pin dot length. If not, so if step is going to 1, so let's go for the if, then we come back to the default pin dot length. Underscore pin dot length. Okay, so what we are saying is, let me restart the entire application. So if the step is step 1, then we are checking the length of the confirmation. But if not, you are checking the length of the normal pin. Okay, so 1 2 3 4. If I tap on this, I should change this, and then at that point the pin confirmation length is empty, is basically empty. So we can also confirm that by doing this. Okay, as you can see, it doesn't have the length. We have this step. Okay, so here handle submit. Sorry, here has to be equal to 1, not assign it to 1, not compare it to 1. Okay, so now we tap on it to realize it changes. So we are on the next screen. Okay, so on the next screen, we rather show, okay, retype your pin again. Okay, now we need that test. So app strings, okay, retype your pin again. Retype your pin again. We just want to do this. let's correct this. Retype your pin. Okay, so retype your pin again, and let's type your pin. Okay, so I have that. Remove that again, so retype your pin so that it's clear enough. So retype your pin, and then let's type your pin is also like we did down there. If the step is 1, then it's retype your pin. If not, let me change this. So retype, sorry. So depending on the step they are, so now they are on step 1. So let's restart. Sorry, let's restart the entire application and get the whole flow again. So let's set up your pin. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I submit. Retype your pin. Realize we are doing this on the same screen. We are just changing the state. Okay. So here, handle the select number. At this point, the same thing. If the person is on step 0, we do this. Okay. If the person is on step 0, we do this. And at this point, I can just set this. All right. Now, if the person is on step 1, else if the step is 1, it's no longer this is pin confirmation, and we set this rather. I hope you understand. So here, 2, 3, 4, and when we backspace, we also have to handle the backspace. So the same thing, we copy this. If the step is 0, then it's this one. Just move this out of the set state. You are going to trigger the set state once below. Just copy this here. Okay. If else if is equal to 1, then we have the pin confirmation, which is going to be this, and the pin length. Okay, let me do this. Okay, all right. So now this one comes. So retype your pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when they tap on this, we have to then submit the pin. In submitting the pin, we need to verify if the pin does not match the pin confirmation. Then what we want to do is we want the user to start the process all over again. Tell them that the pin does not match. So helper dot sniper message, we say that pin confirmation does not match. Okay, and this is going to be success is false. Okay, and then we are going to set the step. So I can just go ahead and say that set state, my step is equal to 0. So I go back to the first screen, and then I return. So it means that everything failed. If everything matches, then we submit. Okay, so now let's test it. So if I tap on this, pin confirmation does not match, and then we come back to the whole, let's set up your pin all over again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Then retype your pin. You have to fix the input indicators as well. So here, oh yeah, we have to, when we send a user here, okay, we want to also do this. We set the step, and then we clean both pins. So and then pin confirmation. Okay, so that's what we are doing now. 1, 2, 3. Now this matches, but if I do this, it does not match. We set up the pin again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we move on. Now I realize it's empty, and now it realize the pin matches, so nothing happens. But if the pin doesn't match, error, pin confirmation. Now let's move this into our upstreams. Okay, and we already have this passwords do not match. So we say that pins do not match. Okay. So app string. Okay, great. Now we say 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 2, 5, 3. Good. Pins do not match. Now one thing you realize, it's in our snack bar. It takes a while. What we can also do is one. Okay, this we can also put about when they tap on it, the snack bar goes away rather than waiting for it to go. We can do that. But for now, let's work on our pin screen. So now, as you can see, we've worked on the validation and also the pin steps, making sure that from step 0 to 1, everything works. Let's review the code and see if we have to make any necessary improvements. Okay, so we have our handle submit, handle backspace, select number. They are all checking the state. So the state is this 0 or 1 by default is the step 0. And then that determines what this test and everything is about, which is good. And then we have a test here. We can just have this star. Okay. So I think we have a very decent flow for now. 1, 2, 3, 9 is wrong. So 1, 2, 3, 6. Start all over again. 1, 2, 3, 6. Now this is correct. Okay. So now what we then want to do is that when it is valid here, we want to set the user's pin and then continue. So we want to say that we already have the user, so we can get the user. But since we already know the user, we want to say var response is equal to the result is equal to await auth controller. Okay, so in our auth controller here, we want to have one that will set the pin. So this will be set pin, and just takes a string of the pin. Now for the pin, we are not going to send it to the backend because we want the pin to be specific to the device. So if I sign in on this device, I want to set my local pin here. And then if I sign in on a new device, I just want to set the pin on that device, not send it to the backend. So the pin is just a second step, but we want to for now persist it on the device. Okay, so we don't need all of this. We don't need this as well. Okay, we are going to send a response. Okay, so for now, let's just do this. What we want to do then is we want to pass the pin to the auth service, so final user. Okay, and then we say auth service, and then we have the update. But what we are going to do is we are not updating the entire user, so we are just going to duplicate this, and then we are going to say that set pin, which is going to be our string pin. Okay, so here we have all of this. Now we don't want to do all of that. What we want to just do is we take the user, and then we have the pin, the user model. Great. And then we have the pin, which is then equal to what's the pin that the user chooses. But there's a flaw here. Okay, we are going to fix that later, but let's just first look at this. And then we come back to our auth controller, and then here what we are saying is that set pin, and we pass the pin. So the pin is successful. If there's an error, it will throw here. If there's no error, it would return a success. And then in our setup pin here, we just say that set pin, sorry, and then we pass the pin string. Okay, and then we await for the results. All right, so the same thing with this. If there's an error, so if result dot there's an error, so its success is false, then we do this, and then we return as well. So if there's an error, we do this, and then we return. All right, so if there's no error, then as we did in the previous screen, so final route is equal to helper dot initial route, and then just as we did for the verification screen. We just want to copy this here. So push remove until this particular route, and we need to await this. So remove everything and go here. All right. So now let's save this. Now let's go back to our auth service, and then in our set pin, what we realize is that when the user enters 1, 2, 3, 4, we are storing exactly 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Hive box, which is wrong, because if you look at the local storage on the device, if you get access to the device storage and then you extract the box, you will then be able to know what the pin is. So what we are going to do is we are going to use a Hive Flutter package called Bcrypt. So Bcrypt is a very popular hashing um, algorithm, as you can see here, and this is the package to have Bcrypt on Flutter. If you have other applications in C#, PHP, even in our Laravel application, we have Bcrypt handling our password hash. Okay, so we are just going to head over to the installing here and then copy this and then install this Bcrypt. Okay, now once this is installed, and if you look at how it works, it just takes this file. Now you pass your password, or your, in this case, our pin. We generate a sort for this, and then we get our hashed. Now if you want to check, we just take what the user types against the hash in the database. So we need this, okay, in here. Okay, so this is our hashed pin. So our hash pin, we import that, and then here we pass the pin that the user wants to create, and then we copy the hash and then we store this. So here we store the hashed pin. Here we can strictly type it, but yeah, I just want to remove the type because we already know it's a string. Okay, so as you can see here. All right, so here we are hashing the pin and we are storing the hash version of the pin, not the raw pin itself. So even if you take the database, the Hive box locally, and then you look at it, you will not be able to get the original pin because you see just the hash stored there, which is better. Okay, so now once this is done, we can go ahead and then test the entire flow. So I'm just going to restart the application. I'm already logged in. So it tells me to let's set up pin 1, 2, 3, 4. I continue 1, 2, 3, 4. Proceed. That's it. Successful. Now let's log out, which removes everything. And then let's log in again. So the safo@gmail.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Takes me back to my pin. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's put a new wrong pin. 0, 0, 0, 0. It's wrong. Now let's start all over again. 1, 1, 2, 2. Okay. 1, 1, 2, 2. Now this works. All right. So that's it for the pin screen. In our next episode, we are going to try and persist the pin in the backend, depending on what the use case is. But for now, we just want to persist the pin locally. Okay, so when the user logs in, they log in with the password, and then they set up the pin. The pin is just going to be used in the app to hide balance when you open the app. Like let's say the user comes here, you can hide the balance and then view the balance only when they enter a valid pin and all that, and that's persisted on the storage. Okay. After setting up the pin, the next thing is you want to set up this account, okay, and you want to have the new account. Now before we can do this, we need to set up the backend to handle the accounts. Okay, so that's it for today's episode. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Like, share, and comment. I'm going to go ahead and push the changes that we've made in this episode. Okay, so we head over to our Android studio. We look at git status. Okay, this is everything that we've done. So git add and git commit. So we're going to use commit messages here. So our commit message is completed, and then we are going to say pin setup pin screen. Okay, so that's what we've worked on today, and then I'm going to push this. Okay, so I'm going to drop a link to the GitHub repositories in the description below. If you have any message, you can shoot me a message at Discord. The username is @devsafo. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, you can drop it in the comment section, and then I'll respond to it as soon as possible. All right, see you.